Ullman. Thank you, guys. And the lovely David Blanchard was supposed to be sharing this, but he got a bit ill. He's fine now, but he couldn't travel as originally planned. So you're stuck with me. I don't have his good looks or charm, but I'll do my best. So David had this idea that he was interested in the notion of when inventors who are pitching stuff all the time, used to getting a lot of no's, developing a thick skin, but with some ideas, if they're good enough and there's enough belief there with inventors, actually there's a moment where they might decide, you know what, I'll do it myself, I'll self-publish, I'll pivot, and this particular project I'll try and make myself. But also in the fact that some inventors, some creative people jump straight to self-publishing. Actually, the inventor model isn't for them, and they dive straight in. So that's sort of what we're going to interrogate here with our lovely panel. So to kick us off, in terms of, to tell us how you actually got into self-publishing, you know, with your first idea. Assim, I'll go with you first with Simbrix. What was your story there, and why did you decide to do it yourself?
1 million brick, 2 million brick. Is it working?
It's working.
3 million bricks, 608 million bricks. Wow, that's the production that character will make of my products this year. So that's where I am now. Where I started was solving a problem for my own kids. So why did I do self-publishing? Because I'm an inventor, and the thing about an entrepreneur, the thing about being an entrepreneur is you've got to validate your product. And I had this thought in my head, nobody's going to license my product if I don't validate it. But instead what will happen is I'll go there and say, why should I care? Who likes your product? And I wanted to go into a pitch meeting saying, thousands of people like my product. Thousands of people have bought my product. So I wanted to do it myself. And that's what I did. Hard work.
So your process was actually, you now licensed the concept to Character. It's launching this year, a big presence at London Toy Fair, if you guys were there. So you actually, rather than going straight into inventing, you were self-publishing, get it to a certain standard, then get the attention. And did you find, obviously it worked, but did you find that it did have a difference? Because I know you have pitched before, pre that as well, so did you find it did make a difference actually going in with almost qualified sales, a better finished product? Did it make a difference versus when you were showing it as a prototype?
Actually, I got a licensing offer from a US company when it was on Kickstarter, before it sold with a single thing. And I took it, and it was a great offer, but then they had a new chief executive and it all got pulled, so okay, I didn't expect that, and it didn't happen anyway. But when I went into pitch, I mean, I invented something that didn't exist. Okay, that's what all of us do. We invent stuff that doesn't exist. It's completely new, it's completely bonkers, and why would anybody buy it? So, but when I had pitched, I could say, I sold it in New Zealand, Arkansas, Spain, Mexico, Brazil, and this is why they buy it. This is who my customer is. This is why mommy is buying it. This is how long they play with it for. And I have all that data. And whether I was nervous or excited or not, I just knew what I was talking about. Because I had spoken to thousands of people over the years. And I went in with this boundless energy. And they were, I hope they bowled over.
Well, no, at least one was. Character. And then we should give it a plug. Simbrix, for anyone who hasn't seen it, could you describe the product? Oh, there we go.
So this is version 2. They're tiny little bricks that connect together without being ironed or glued. And this is what I was doing. I solved the problem for my own kids. And I discovered that thousands of other parents had the same problem, and kids wanted to, do this pixeling artwork. Yeah. And I had a patent and a design registration before I went in to see anybody.
Good stuff. And then Hazel, in terms of gamely and your range of games, was it straight to self-publishing? Did you dabble in inventing? What was the story there?
I had no idea that was an option. I didn't have any product design knowledge, any games experience, didn't know all this existed when I set up a games company. I just made a game for my little sister to lure her away from her iPad, and she loved it, and everyone was like, oh, you should make this into a thing. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good. But I didn't know that I could go and pitch it to a big company. I thought, oh, Hasbro's probably like in America, I don't even know. I don't even think the thought occurred to me. But I had heard of Kickstarter, and I bought games myself on Kickstarter. we did finally decide, oh yeah, let's try and make this into a thing that people can buy, we just started out with Kickstarter. And it wasn't until a couple of years into running a games company I met you and heard about Mojo Nation and that this fantastic organisation exists and everyone's connected together. And now I've learned lots about the games industry. But yeah, I didn't know there was an option at the beginning, so yeah.
Amazing. And you invent, have you added that string to your bow now? Do you, for stuff that isn't right for gamely, do you pitch? Do you invent? How do you juggle both? Or?
Yeah, so we've dabbled a little bit in pitching. We have licensed our proven concepts that have done well in the UK to bigger companies for kind of global rights. And I keep thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to go.
Excuse me, you just said global rights. That's huge.
And
Can we give it a round of applause?
We've licensed the game in-house as well, the other way around, and that's been quite fun. A proven concept in France that we now brought out in the UK. And yeah, we've got this big bank of ideas, and I keep thinking I must come to MojoPitch and do it again because it's been fun. But I didn't get around to it this year, so maybe next year I'll come and
We're all getting plugs today. And Al, obviously GPI works a lot with both other games companies, publishers, also a lot with inventors. You've been in the inventing shoes. Your dad, Don Ullman, is a prolific inventor. Bring him in. So from your point of view, when you're looking at this sort of stuff, what are some of the key considerations you find that steer people towards self-publishing? We've had two stories here. Is it a bit of that? Is it sort of either not knowing it exists, or is it actually, you know what, I think we spoke before about some inventors not liking the idea of their game just being one of several games in a company's portfolio, maybe not being the favourite child, if you like. So what do you think tends to steer people's journey when it comes to this sort of stuff?
Well, I think, let's see, let's work it. Hello? Oh, there we go. All right. So one of the things that I think is probably the most prominent factor in inventors moving towards self-publishing is when they have one of those ideas that they believe in so adamantly that they say, this is the idea that I've had that I'm the most proud of. And they pitch it, and people like it. Maybe they take in videos, maybe they even option it, or they get to the point of a deal, and then something falls through, or it doesn't get picked up, and then they say, I've been holding on to this. I don't want it to just sit on my shelf. Where do I go from here? And I don't think that every inventor knows what the avenues are to get to the point where they feel confident in pursuing self-publishing. And so I think one of the things that is really important to highlight on this panel is that there are avenues for inventors, right? When you have that idea that you really believe in, that you should consider exploring whether it's worth self-publishing. And it won't be right for everybody. My father Don, he's been inventing games and toys for 30 years, and in that entire time he only ever tried to self-publish one idea, right? And because for him the inventor model was working out pretty well. But that one idea was something that he really believed in, and he sees the opportunity of beautiful circumstance to bring that product to life. And unfortunately, it was a short-lived one, but when you see the opportunity, you definitely have to seize those kinds of things.
Hazel, I want to know, as a startup, creating your own games, obviously on the inventor model, you're bouncing ideas back and forth between publishers, you're getting feedback, you're getting ways to shape your ideas, hopefully make it better and get a yes. But obviously when you're on your own, self-publishing, what are you doing to sort of, I suppose, get to that level in terms of playtesting, prototyping? How important is that part of your day-to-day?
Yeah, so prototyping and playtesting is my favourite topic. And a few things we've learned along the way. Prototyping, I guess our process is to keep it as rubbish as possible for as long as possible. So when we're just making a prototype, we're doing it with Sharpies on those blank cards that you buy from Amazon, and we're putting no love and energy into how it looks. It's all about the mechanics and how it works. And that works for us because if you haven't invested loads of time and energy in your prototype, when you test it with whoever you're testing it with, and half of it is fun and half of it is rubbish, you don't mind wiping out that whole half of the game because you've not got special illustrations, you've not put loads of work into it. So yeah, we do it in cards and Sharpies. We might upgrade to Excel or Google Sheets or Google Slides and make a printable prototype if you want to send it out to more people. But yeah, just don't put any effort into your prototypes when you're developing the game because otherwise it's harder to kill your babies.
I almost spoke after over a lovely line there.
But then playtesting as well. So another thing we've learned on the way is so we start in-house, we start with our friends and family, but as soon as we think we've got something that's a goer, we get outside of our friends and family as soon as possible, because your friends and family will love your game idea because they love you and you made it, and that's lovely and encouraging. But the sooner you can get it to people who don't care so much about you and your feelings, the better. And one thing we do to enable them to give us the really helpful, constructive feedback is we ask them a question that is actually from your book, which is if you had to write this product a 1-star Amazon review, what would you write? And it just gives people permission to pick out all those tiny little things that they probably don't think it's worth mentioning, like, oh, I hate this, but it doesn't really matter. And they have to pull out all those bits that will help you make your game better. And that's the best question in our playtesting feedback. It's so helpful. And yes, use it.
Amazing. So embrace the lack of effort. Find people that don't care about you or your opinions. And kill your ugly baby. If anyone's slow to make notes, I'll write it up for you afterwards. And then on that, diving into the last bit, not that I'm obsessed. I don't want an argument. It's all right. She's beautiful. But with the thing about, was that a muscle you had to train in terms of being able to kill ideas, being able to create something, not fall in love with it, recognise its flaws, and say actually that's going, we put some time into it, but that's going nowhere.
Yeah, that's been a huge journey over the last 8 years. So when I made the first game, I just made one game and then put it out there, and then for a couple of years I was like, that was probably the only game. I probably struck lucky, made a game, it worked. Probably don't have any more ideas. And it wasn't until I started getting into making myself sit down and go, okay, well let's try and get some ideas and look at different ways to do that. And then going on that journey to where you feel less precious about the ideas, and you feel like actually there's loads of ideas you can generate, and the more you've got, the less precious you are about them, so the keener you'll be to take on the good feedback to improve them. And yeah, I feel more and more disconnected from the ideas as we go on. In a healthy way, I think. Like, I've still got my own favourites, my favourite babies, but when we're playtesting, I often as well, I need to go away and process all the feedback. So when we're playtesting with the team, I'm taking all the feedback, I'm write all the comments down, and I'll not say no to anything, and then I'll go away and I'll process it. You've still got that final say of what you incorporate, but encouraging as much as possible people's ideas on how to grow the game. But yeah, lots of ideas is healthy, because then we can get some really far. We've had games that have got to a really good level, and we did make the mistake of commissioning illustrations before we finished it. It was a hard lesson to learn, and it was a good game. It was like a 7 or 8 out of 10 game, but it wasn't great. It didn't have that extra bit, and the difference between putting out a 7 out of 10 game and a 10 out of 10 game is huge. Like, we've got some good games out there that sell, at this level, and we've got a few bestsellers that sell at this level. So you're better off killing some of those good games to make space for great ones.
Absolutely. Assim, I'm interested in some of the sort of things that might put people off and how you sort of navigated that. So the one that strikes me would be the sort of money side, the fundraising thing. If you're going to, especially if you've got other jobs and you've got this, and I think with Simbrix, you weren't a full-time employee, inventor, and other things going on. So on the fundraising side, how did you tackle that? What was useful? What wasn't useful? How did you get yourself in a position that you could start making this toy yourself on the side?
I started really small. I started with buying the components, shipped in from China, and we put them together ourselves. So every order, we would get the components, put them together, back them up, and send them off.
And we is?
Me and my interns and my apprentices at the time, and some undergraduates at the time. So just did it on a minimal, bare, end of a shoelace. And then that was doing really well. And I just basically used that money to pay for the second batch, because I believed in it. And while we were doing it ourselves, it was a rubbish product. The Simbrix was amazing, but everything around it was rubbish. So you just strip away all the stuff that you can't do amazingly well, and you end up with the pure toy, the essence of the toy. There's 1,000 things I'd like to do with it, and the character are doing amazing things with it. But at the time, I couldn't afford it, so we just kept it really simple. And actually, it was useful to do that, because I didn't know the toy that I had was going to be what it was. Whatever I thought the product was, it wasn't until I first exhibited it at a crafts fair that the parent told me, And my business plan was that you iron them if you want to. And she said to me, you mean I never have to iron them again? And I thought, oh my God. And my whole business plan was around them ironing them at some point and me selling more bricks. And she's killed it all off. But what she left me was so much better, so much more powerful, and she was enthused by it. So I work with lots of entrepreneurs and inventors now as a coach. And they want perfection. And it doesn't exist in life. And if you haven't got much money, just don't waste your time on it at all. If at some point you do want a license, the manufacturer's going to do their own thing anyway. I mean, some guys from Character are here, and they have done wonderful things with it. But I didn't know what they were going to do. And I've met some inventors over the years who tell me about the market potential, and who could license their brand on top of it. And I'm thinking, brother or sister, you don't have a clue what they're going to do with it. And you need to give them some space to do their own thing. So I just accepted I didn't have much money, and I just worked with peanuts. And it got me through. I didn't want to take on any debt. I ended up having some debt, and that was a bit painful. But you know, if I could go back, I'd just do it on a shoestring instead. It's far better.
Yeah. And then I'm interested in skill set wise, because I think there is a difference in terms of accessibility to game invention and toy invention. So with Simbrix being a toy, and with your skill set maybe not being, what were you in normal life?
I have a degree in accounting and finance.
Okay, accounting, finance. So in terms of the craft element of creating a craft toy, what was that like in terms of developing a skill set where you could make a prototype and you're actually making things? Was that a bit of a leap?
I have a GCSE in home economics as well.
Oh, sorry.
Is that qualification enough?
Next question.
The thing is, look, somebody asked earlier, does anybody plan to be here? And I didn't put my hand up. I didn't plan to be here. The great thing about being a toy inventor is you just figure it out. You know, you figure out a problem, and then you figure out the answer. And it's just about creativity. And what you end up with is something that solves a problem in the simplest, purest form. And if I knew too much, if I was like my son with a degree in engineering, I would have overworked it and overkilled it. And, you know, it'd be beautiful, but would it work? Not hell.
Yeah.
So keeping it simple was helpful for me. So yeah, keep it simple.
Amazing. And then, Al, I'm interested in the sort of hurdles you find people coming to you for help with in terms of manufacturing. What are some of the big ones? What are some of the either maybe misconceptions or fears that startups have? And what do you find GPI is tending to sort of hold people's hands through and help them?
So I think that the biggest thing that people come to us with is obviously their manufacturing concerns. And I think that's another thing that inventors typically don't interface with factories that often. There are some who do, and there are certain factories who have a reputation for working with inventors. But I think overall, that is a side of the business that most inventors miss on. And so when when inventors come to us and they say, hey, we have this idea, we would like to self-publish, but we don't know anything about the manufacturing, what GPI tries to do is we try to say, that's essentially why this service exists. That's why, that's why factories provide the services that they do, that they can help you through the various stages of the journey. And so while I've been at GPI, one of the things that I've done is the project coordination side, which is actually interfacing with factories. And so through developing that experience, working there, and then moving back into the inventing sphere, it ends up giving you a greater appreciation for how the components that you include in your game impact the impression that your game will have on consumers. Consumers now are incredibly focused on using eco-friendly materials, using things that are FSC certified. These are all terms that end up having to deal with the sustainability of the product, which is what ends up making retailers excited about products and a lot of times. And so finding ways to support the inventors and saying, hey, we can offer these suggestions to you that what if you took this component that you have in your game that you want to self-publish, instead of making it out of plastic, you make it out of wood, you make it out of chipboard, you do a 3D constructible version of this, and all of a sudden it takes whatever product that they have and not only invigorates them with excitement about their own product in a way that they maybe haven't seen before, but then that they can then go and use as a selling point for their product as well.
Amazing. And is there, sort of looking at the broader picture there, is there a common mistake that new inventors, or a mistake that's exclusive to new inventors you're finding pops up a lot, that you're finding as one piece of advice you're giving people at the same time, or a path you're leading people away to? Is there something that crops up a lot that, like these guys have said, either a mistake they've managed to find early, or what would you say is one thing that the trap that new inventors tend to fall down?
A lot of new inventors, I shouldn't say a lot of new inventors, but some of occasionally people will come to us with an idea that, again, they love and they believe in, but they've only play tested it by themselves, and sometimes only in their head, and they haven't actually made the prototype of it yet. And in their head, it works out great. And I've certainly fallen into this trap myself. I'm like, wait, this is an amazing idea. We need to do this, this, and this, and then you actually build it, and it does not work at all. So absolutely, certainly before you go to like saying, yes, I'm going to pay money to have this manufactured, and I'm going to spend money on art and spend it on marketing and all that stuff that goes into actually making the product successful, please make sure play tested thoroughly your game. But I also would say that that's not exclusive to new inventors, right? That's something that all inventors will fall into. Even no matter how adamantly they believe in the use of their playtesting and making their prototypes really high quality, that they have to actually go through those steps every time on every product. And then once you do, you will really be able to identify which of your games are the winners.
Absolutely. And Hazel, so linked to that, is there a particular moment in the game, the story so far, either a success story or a big mistake that you think has really shaped and sort of intensified the focus of what you're doing and has contributed to where you are now and the success you're having?
I've got one of each, is that right?
Okay. We'll hit your way.
Okay, so one of the mistakes we made when we released our second game, so we make really small games. We don't like extra air boxes. So we make our games as small as possible because they use less resources and they're easy to put in your pocket, you can take them, play them anywhere, and we're really proud of this. We love our small boxes. But maybe we didn't make this quite clear enough when we first uploaded Soundiculous to Amazon. And as anyone knows, if you order something online and it's not what you're expecting, it's really annoying. If you order, you hear the horror story, someone orders a couch, you get like a little doll's house couch. That's really annoying. So when we first uploaded it, it's a picture, and I think people expected it to be bigger, and actually it fits in your hand. Same game, just less air. So we learned quite heavily from that, getting some reviews, and I thought this could be bigger. This is, it's tiny. How am I gonna? This is not a full game. And now we shout about our US video having small, well, not US anymore, because everyone's making small games now. It's the future. But yeah, we shout about making small games now. We're much kind of more vocal about that. And we've got picture in a hand, pocket size in the title, dimensions in the bullet points. We think we could make it much more clearer how small the games are. So.
How big is the hand?
It's my hand, so maybe it makes it look even smaller. And then I guess for kind of upset shape tears, we had a couple over the last year. So one was we've given 10% of our profits to charity since we started. That's quite an important value for us. And we hit £100,000 to charity last year.
Can we get a round of applause? I think you say, Hazel only agreed to do the panel, she gets at least 3 rounds of applause before she leaves. Find something else in the next 5 minutes to do it.
Well, the other big success.
Brace yourself.
We, this year, have managed to become 100% plastic free, which was a real big one for us as well. And it wasn't that easy. Like, we removed the shrink wrap on the cards a couple of years ago and replaced that with paper wrapping, so the last thing for us was the shrink wrap. And we really, really had to push our manufacturer this year. Like, our manufacturers are great, but we had to. I guess the thing that I've learned over the last few years is that all of a sudden I've got this huge responsibility, but also this little bit of power. If you're manufacturing hundreds of thousands of games a year, you've got to take responsibility for what you're putting out into the world. And that shrink wrap was just getting bigger and bigger in my mind, and that was not something I wanted to put out into the world. And we replaced it with a plant-based biodegradable cellophane, which took research in itself to work out how you even kind of what we wanted, because it's biodegradable plastic. which just biodegrades into plastic, that just being people are calling it biodegradable, that's no good. So it took a lot of research, it took a lot of pressure on our manufacturing, you know, you have to vote with your kind of where you put your money, but they came through and they've smashed it, they've done such a good job with the biodegradable cellophane, and now it's something they can offer to lots of people, and that's the thing, they've got all the machines now, so hopefully that will see it rolled out easily across other games. So that's, yeah, learning that you've got a responsibility when you're manufacturing things, and you can use your, I don't know, your money to...
Amazing. Good work. And then, Assim, with you, again, a moment with either a negative, another one. Taking the piss. It's very hard to round applause. So with, in terms of either a moment of failure or a tough moment or a particular successful moment that shapes Simbrix or sent it on its way, is there anything that comes to mind for you?
I had 400 failures to get to the Simbrix that worked. And you know, that's the prototyping phase. And I had this idea, and it worked in my head, but it didn't work in reality, so I just kept going. And then I had this idea of what the business plan would be, of what the consumer would get from it, and they completely killed it. So that didn't work. So what really worked, blew me out of the water, was I did 1,000 consumer tests. So I had 1,000 people play with Simbrix for us on a single thing. And they told me exactly what they wanted to hear, what they wanted to see, what they wanted to buy, and how much they wanted to pay for it. So guess what? I gave them that. And we didn't do too well on Kickstarter. I mean, the numbers weren't great. But we sold so much after Kickstarter, and just by delivering what the customer wanted. You know, and I'm a big opinionated chap, and I just had a moment of humility, and I let my ego go, and I just gave in to what the customer wanted, and I ended up having a product that did amazing things. And we have cult fans, you know, really, really love our toys. You have some autistic children, and it's changed their life. You know, they were breaking classrooms and tearing their house apart, and playing with Simbrix calms them down, mellows them out, and just the feedback I get from the parents and the children, it's been all worth it, just by listening to the consumer. So,
and do you think part of that is personality? Do you think there is something about you as a person that means if you get 400 setbacks, you know, I imagine different people would react differently to that. Was there anything, or you know, was there anything about your outlook that helped that process?
Al said to me one thing about his father, and the number one thing that his father has is persistence. And I think we in this room exhibit that sense of persistence. We are stupid, we are crazy, we are nuts, we're eccentric, but we are persistent. And as long as we're persistent, but willing to flex, I think we'll get there. So I am stupidly persistent. And I'm happy with that.
And then before we wrap up, Al, I was interested in if there's anyone in the room, you know, who's sort of interested in or has an idea that, you know what, actually I'm tempted to go self-publish this, create this myself. Is there any key piece of advice you would give inventors in terms of making that leap? You know, not maybe not full time, just for the right project about doing it yourself, going it alone.
Absolutely. So one thing that I've seen, and this is very true, you know, still, since I'm at GPI, collaboration is everything. Self-publishing does not have to be a self-only endeavor, right? So there's sort of that misnomer, you know, built into the concept entirely, which is that if you're self-publishing, you have to do it alone. And I think it's honestly the exact opposite of that. It's really, you should find the people in the community, and you know, this is the perfect, you know, like grounds to find those kinds of people who share your passion about ideas, who have a skill set that complements your own. Sort of harkens back to what Angus was saying about, you know, you have T-shaped people who have a very, you know, a great depth of knowledge about a specific thing, right? So find the person whose specific depth of knowledge complements your own, or the people who can really support you, if your expertise lays in marketing, find someone who is really great at design. If you're great at coming up with concepts, find somebody who can prototype really well, and work together, build something collaborative, because that's where you're going to find the most success. Absolutely, and that's what I've seen while working with my father, seeing him work with his partners while I was growing up, seeing it working with all the inventors we work with at GPI. I think that that's a global phenomenon, and I think that's something that everyone should take away.
Amazing. Well, that's a fantastic place to wrap up. Guys, please give a very warm round of applause for Al. I'm going to introduce Deej, but it looks like I not been mixed up. So yeah, thank you guys. So next up.